Hey guys, hi. This is the first in a series. Now, for a very long time, we've realized that we aren't engaging with you enough on the reading list, and all you get to do with it is a research, hopefully, for a couple of weeks, hopefully, before the tournament, and then show up and debate some topics on it and only make sense of it after a series of whirlwind debates. This series is our attempt to engage with you on the reading list and to discuss some of the themes and topics that are that are part of it with you guys through a video. So there's just going to be a series of conversations on some of the topics that we are picking up. We will also be discussing some of the selections that the musical selections, literature selections that are a part of your curriculum. We are taking requests for that, things that you want us to talk about on Instagram as well as on the comments on YouTube. So please let us know in the future what you would like us to talk about. So we'll just get started. These are some people you may be familiar with if you have been part of the Behes community recently, especially since the online rounds began. We have Mr. Navneel, who is our outreach coordinator. Adil, who is our key tournament staff. He's the man who makes things happen. We have Shivansh Umat, who is the newest member of our core team. We knew that he had great organizational skills, but recently we got to know that he's pretty well read, makes amazing memes. We have Ms. Chandrika Tomar, who's been with us for a year and a half. She'll be talking about some of the more literature-based aspects of our curriculum today. We have Mr. Christie, who of course is a program manager with our training wing, Counterpoint. And of course, we have Shubhankar Kashyap, who we never tire of introducing as a two-time Behes champion. And he will also be here. Snoop Dogg! All right, guys. So I guess let's just jump right into it. So there's also an idea as to how you guys can start approaching the reading list. The first selection that we'd like to talk about, which is part of your second sub-theme, is actually a book. It's a book by Chomsky and Herman called Manufacturing Consent, The Political Economy of Mass Media. Now that name is long and scary, but the ideas are extremely interesting and extremely pertinent to the world today. Shivansh, do you want to tell us what you read in it?
So basically this book, a very wonderful insight into how the media basically functions. Chomsky mentions that the media, contrary to the popular belief that it is actually a check on those in power and the ruling elite, it is contrary to that. It is actually a mouthpiece of the ruling elite.
Wait a minute!
He has given a propaganda model, and this propaganda model has 5 filters.
The first has to do with ownership. Mass media firms are big corporations. Often they're part of even bigger conglomerates. Their endgame, profit. Media costs a lot more than consumers will ever pay. So who fills the gap? Advertisers. And what are the advertisers paying for? Audiences. And so it isn't so much that the media are selling you a product, their output. They're also selling advertisers a product, you. Journalism cannot be a check on power because the very system encourages complicity. Governments, corporations, big institutions know how to play the media game. They know how to influence the news narrative. They feed media scoops, official accounts, interviews with the experts. They make themselves crucial to the process of journalism. So those in power and those who report on them are in bed with each other. If you want to challenge power, you'll be pushed to the margins. Your name won't be down. You won't be getting in. You've lost your access. You've lost the story. That's the fourth filter. When the story is inconvenient for the powers that be, you'll see the flak machine in action, discrediting sources, trashing stories, and diverting the conversation. To manufacture manufacture consent, you need an enemy, a target. That common enemy is the fifth filter. Communism, terrorists, immigrants, a common enemy. A boogeyman to fear helps corral public opinion. 5 filters, one big media theory. Consent is being manufactured all around you, all the time.
That is how media basically, the information is censored. So this is a very interesting book which gives an idea that media is actually not free in complete sense.
So the idea behind how the media can be controlled, first of all, of course, through corporate interests. I'm going to ask our students right now to, if you have to pause this video and go and Google it, please go and Google who owns some of the top media houses that you have heard of, the mainstream TV news media in India. Please find out about the ownership. The very basic ones, read about NDTV, read about Republic, and you'll get to know a little bit about why they print or why they show the kind of news that they show. Guys, I think we can start talking about one of the next things in the reading list right after manufacturing consent, actually, and a very related topic, which is, of course,
fake news. Fake news.
Yeah, so fake news, like as I just saw that most of the media houses, they're actually the government and the corporates, etc., they exert a lot of influence over what these media houses they publish, talk about, or show. So what happens as a result of such a huge censoring of information is that these media houses they start to deliberately put out fake information, false information, information that might be deliberately manipulated with, information that might malign a particular community. But most of the time, this information is actually coming in a very systematic manner.
Yeah, I think continue as to what Shivansh said. There was this very famous case that happened during the Jamia shooting. There were a bunch of violence that happened around Jamia Millia Islamia earlier this year. And one of the most famous ones was how Republic TV showcased it was that one of the Jamia students, one of the protesters turned violent. He held up a gun and he shouted a slogan called Ye Lo Azadi, and even shot one of the students. And Republic TV showcased it as one of the protesters turning violent, whereas the scene was that that person was nowhere related to Jamia and turned out to be a minor, if I believe.
Yeah, he's a school student somewhere near the UP border.
Yeah. So there is no credibility as to whether it was planted or whether it was not. But Republic TV showcased it like fully on their channel. One of the protesters.
Yeah.
And he slammed a defamation case against that Kashmiri student. He did slam a defamation case. He asked for an apology from the news, from the channel, or he will file a defamation case.
Talking of defamation, I have something interesting to share. So in 2017, there's this very star-like editor. He does a 10 p.m. show these days. Basically, he claims that he can DNA test any story. And he used to be the editor of a different news channel back then. And in 2007, that particular news channel did a sting operation about a teacher in East Delhi who is trading the students for sexual exploitation and other alleged claims. It turned out later that they aired the same sting operation at 2 p.m. while the school was about to get over. And this was one of the great cases of mob lynching where a fringe group ran to the school. They dragged out that particular teacher out of her class and they beat her they tear off her clothes. And later on in court, it came out as the whole sting operation was fake. So basically, according to that prestigious editor, the case is that an intern did a fake sting operation and nothing was true. And this is one example of how fake news can lead to different ways.
Is this why Sudhir Chaudhary went to jail?
No, he went to jail because of a different case, but the news channel got banned because of the Same case. The lady is called
Okay.
Uma Khurana. If you want to look up the story.
First, I want to start my normal life once again. अपना घर, अपना परिवार, अपने बच्चे, अपना जॉब, स्कूल, नॉर्मल रूटीन लाइफ. यस, मैं करना चाहती हूँ, बट नॉट अगेंस्ट दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट, अगेंस्ट चैनल्स जिन्होंने मुझे इतना डिफेम किया, डिमोरलाइज किया, जिनकी वजह से मेरी जान जा सकती थी.
You guys remember that example, like in April, when after the lockdown was announced, very like without any prior warning and all. After that, in Bandra, which is in Mumbai, there a huge crowd of migrant laborers had gathered, and actual reason for that particular gathering of migrants without social distancing and all, that was because a local regional unit of ABP News called ABP Maja, they had reported, which is actually a fake news, that there will be special trains that will take those migrant laborers back to their native states, native villages. And that rumor, basically because of the fake news, just spread like anything, and then it ultimately ended up in a like in this whole fiasco. And after that, what happened was that major news channels like Republic TV and also channels like ABP itself, they communalized the event. They started to hatch conspiracy theories regarding it, saying that it's anti-national activity, and it is done by Muslims, and because there was a mosque near it.
Nearby, yeah.
And you can like see this news clipping by News Laundry, which basically debunks this whole myth. And like it was really bizarre that how the local how the local unit of ABP News, which was in Marathi, spread a fake news, and then the ABP actual national level media wing, it communalized it.
It is fake. It's all fake news.
Bizarre.
This is actually one of the things that they teach in journalism school. I think, Navneet, you were only telling me that watch how a story is covered locally within the district. In the district, it will be a person with axe murders 3 people. And then when it comes to the state news, then it will become Dalit man murders 3 Brahmin youths. When it goes to the national, it goes story of Dalit revenge. Dalit panther crashes axe into 3 Brahmin skulls or whatever. So it's like a game of Chinese whispers that the media itself.
Yeah.
And also we want you guys to know, okay, so one of the things that we also asked in our reading list was, is all fake news made with an ulterior motive? So what do you guys think about that? Is there any other kind of fake news?
That I would think that it's
like saying that
wonderful.
the 2000 rupee note, the new 2000 rupee notes will have GPS chip inside them, and playing that on television.
So I think there is one great thing about fake news is that it spreads so quickly that there must be some science behind it. There must be some logic behind it that people
Okay, cool.
tend to forward
That brings me to my next point, is how that exists is because of one of the biases that we hope you have already studied as part of the curriculum, is your confirmation bias. So the internet and Facebook and these algorithms function in such a beautiful way that you will only see the news that you want to see, right? So if I usually read the Wire, the Print, the Quint, and I don't read anything else, I will only get news articles that will supplement my worldview. And that's the same for somebody on the other end of the spectrum who's only like reading the Frustrated Indian or Op India or Swarajya Mag for some reason. They won't see anything, any of the stuff that we are seeing. So basically, the world is divided, and it's getting more and more divided by our consumption patterns. So yeah, figure out how to do with that, how to get a complete perspective. What I do is I go to the opposite end of my political spectrum and I try to subscribe to as many of the magazines and pages and stuff as I can so that I get an idea of what's happening on the other side. And it's usually quite shocking to people. So you should do that. Okay, guys, back to
But
fake
how
news.
would that help?
You'll at least know what the other side is talking about because right now you don't.
You'll also be more balanced when you
Yeah.
see.
Oh, and one more thing. I thought only right wing people and right wing agendas spread fake news until I joined some of these groups.
एकदम इन्होंने वक्त बदल दिया, जज्बात बदल दिए, जिंदगी बदल दी.
So it's very clear. It's not one-sided. Both sides employ propaganda and fake news, and basically it's how you write a headline.
Exactly.
Right? It's just the choice of words will put a tilt on it. So sometimes we aren't aware of these other tilts or perspectives people may have, I feel. Which is why we have also introduced you to things like the International Fact Checking Network in our reading list, so that you can actually know that there is a few reputed fact checking sites that you can check out and that actually follow journalistic standards.
Oh, right. So, Salil, going by what you just said, so the necessary resources are out there, but it ultimately boils down to the individual, the consumer, that is. Since you mentioned that you take care to listen or pay attention to both sides of the argument, going by what you just said, I just recall this example of this BMP, and I had to look it up on my phone. This guy, the Babul Supriyo, he was caught making a false claim on live TV regarding Deepika Padukone starring movie Chapak. It was a clear-cut moment where it's plain as daylight to see that when our representatives, our policy makers, are when they are falling victim to false news, I mean, what would be the state of the general public? And this is indeed a serious concern. But I mean, people like us, we can't help that, I guess.
Because whether it's the politicians or whether it's common people like us, we are all dependent on the thing we saw on Facebook. And come on, let's be honest with ourselves. At least 70% of the time, we do not read the article. We see the headline. MP found doing XYZ in ABC, and we just share it with 20 people. Haha. Because I hate that party or that person, I will, or I have a bias against them, I'll spread it without reading about it.
I remember when like Orkut and Facebook started, it was the concept was basically about meeting new people, making friends digitally, and somehow it just evolved into this
dating site,
getting information on dating site, getting news from social media, and then it changed into getting fake news from it. So now, like what you said, we read headlines and we read most of the news that we consume are through social media, like whether we like it or not. Even if we are going to some reputed news channels and we follow some good media channels on YouTube, but we still get a lot of news, whether we like it or not, through social media.
It used to be a place where you socialize while sitting at your own comfort, while it turned out to a market, then it turned out to of course, dating site, then it turned out to something. That's also a reason why people are moving from Facebook to Instagram and now from Instagram to Snapchat. Or
TikTok was the new thing which recently got.
Nabil even uses LinkedIn like a dating site.
मेरे पास कोई अल्फाज नहीं है, मुझे माफ कर दे आप लोग सारे, मुझे छुट्टी दे दें.
Okay, cool. One of the next fake news that I want to bring up that went a little under the radar because it wasn't obviously communal. I thought, but I was wrong. That's the elephant case in Kerala. So first of all, we'll put up an image of the place where it happened. And you can see that it's so the place where they claim that it happened is Mallapuram, which is one of the only Muslim majority districts in that part of India. But the fact is, the case never happened there. It happened in another place. And a fake news was spread about two young men with Muslim names have been arrested because of feeding the cracker to the elephant that died. Later on, fact-checking networks as well as, and not just fact-checking networks, even the Ministry for Environment of the government of India, the central government, even they said that this is a common practice where locals put crackers and fruits to scare away wild boars that are a danger to their life and safety as well as to the food that they grow. So when the Ministry of Education themselves debunked it, even then people like Menaka Gandhi and a lot of news channels actually carried the news that the elephant was fed a, a fruit filled with crackers with the express intention of murdering it. So if you notice, there were some about over 100 Twitter accounts that had shared this on the same day. That what will you do with your literacy rate if this is your humanity? Exact same words, uh, about 100 different accounts, names of different religions, very clearly orchestrated. And I'll run you through how fake this news really was. One, lie number one, that it was fed to the elephant. It was not. It was eaten. It was kept there to scare off wild boar. So says the Ministry of Environment and a number of fact-checking sites. If you don't believe me, I am not a media mogul. Please don't come at me. Lie number two, it did not happen in Malappuram. It happened in another place. We'll let you know in the comments what that place was. I'm forgetting right now. And Malappuram was targeted maybe because it's one of the only Muslim majority districts, constituencies in South India, where the currently ruling central party has never ever won. Okay. And the lie number three was that the two people who have been found guilty, first of all, nobody was found guilty. They claimed that two people were found guilty and those two people were also Muslims, fictional Muslims. These people did not exist. They just put up names that had F and Z in them and decided to run with it. That's how fake that news was. So yeah, just to give you an idea about what really goes on, man.
As a Malayali, even I felt, I mean, some sense of outrage, especially seeing that viral image of the baby elephant, the embryo of
Yeah.
that baby elephant. I mean, it's just like Shivansh said, it's censored. The media has been censored, filtered out in such a way so that it can target.
Oh yeah. So now let's look at this. Let's try and examine the ulterior motive behind this fake news. One very clear, the misnaming of the place where the incident happened to correspond to a Muslim majority constituency. Number two, Kerala is a communist state, which is now a very, very bad word in today's India. If you are keeping up, if you watch the news, then it's a terrible thing to be. And third, it builds in very well with the क्या ये Hinduism पर attack है? What you saw on Republic TV? Obviously, because Kerala is one of the only two or three, like one of the only few states in India where consuming beef is legal and a part of daily culture. It also ties in very well with that whole narrative as well. So I don't know what your opinions are. If you disagree, please let us know in the comments. But yeah, just wanting you to start thinking about the news in this way.
ओ भाई मारो मुझे मारो मारो मुझे मारो मारो
So talking of what like some of the things in our curriculum, Adil, get your instruments ready. So one of the there are selections as part of your reading list. One of the ones is Talking John Birch, Paranoid Blues. It talks about a person who's in a state of mind where he's entirely paranoid about the existence of communists in his country, in this case, the United States of America, and he's sort of imagining that they're all over because he's been his head is full of propaganda about how the communists are hiding among us. Hope you recognize it, Adil.
Yeah, a very funny thing about that is when he refers to Hitler and Hitler's reign. So basically, the character, he joins anti-communist club, which is called John Birch Club. Yeah,
Society.
society. So yeah, so there's a line which says that Hitler killed these many million Jews. He was a fascist, but at least he was not a communist. So that was a little. was looking high and low for them reds everywhere. I was looking in the sink and underneath the chair. I looked away up the chimney hole and looked deep inside my toilet bowl. They got away.
So just compare this a little to the state of mind of your parents, or hopefully not you, people who watch the news and are under the impression that the jihadis are all around us or something like that, and the way they think. The kind of paranoia that is in people's minds because of listening to misinformation all day is kind of what this guy is going through. It's a sarcastic song. It's satirical. He's talking about joining the John Birch Society and then thinking that even Hitler is okay because he wasn't a communist, and stuff like that.
And basically, this whole thing talks about the
Sorry to
confirmation
interrupt you.
bias, right?
That.
That you create a belief about a certain community, a certain group, or anything through repetitive news coverage of that particular community, and then you create a belief about it. And wherever you go with that filter on. And if you see, like, if I have bias against a particular community, um, whenever I will encounter that person, my biases will come in, and the paranoia will kick in if I associate that community with paranoia.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
in case of queer community, a lot of people who have no interaction. I won't just say that they are homophobic. They don't know anything. No, none of their friends came out to them, so they don't really know how things are. They stereotype on the basis of what media shows. So they're
Hmm.
scared that that person, if that person is gay, that person is transgender, they're gonna rape you, which is not really true, which is a dumb stereotype because it's about human. Like, if there are evil straight, there are evil gays as well. So that's also one thing. So yeah, I think media again is the culprit here.
Like I told you about the propaganda model of Chomsky, he talked about an external enemy, and so this external enemy can manifest in any ways.
Hmm.
There is like a fear of immigrants, like in US.
Hmm.
There's a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment. That is also in part created by the media only.
Like in some of the examples Nabneel gave you, in the beginning we only spoke about fake news and the mass media. But the mass media isn't just the news media.
Hmm.
So I'll give you some examples. I don't know if you've ever heard. Bobby Darling was one of the
Yeah.
few trans actors, right, to break through in the Indian film industry, what we know as Bollywood. If you notice any of the roles Bobby Darling has ever done, it has just been slapstick. It has been given them a gender role where they talk in a slightly effeminate voice and try to touch the lead actor's chest or
Comical
something like
characters.
that.
I mean,
And
it's not
so
funny. It's just there. Somebody is touching someone. It's not funny.
That it becomes downright offensive, according to me, that you're just limiting this
Yeah.
because,
sure,
yeah,
but just like Nabneel pointed out, it's offensive to us because we know that's not true.
Hmm.
yeah,
But to
exactly.
somebody who, let's say, grows up in a small town,
Hmm.
in an all boys school, I'm just giving you an example. I mean, statistically, if there are 30 kids in his class, some of them would be gay, but they come from a place where even those people haven't been able to explore that. So for them, that's funny. If you're in
Yeah.
a all, and I have lived in small towns all my life, I can tell you that at age
And the
11 or
impact
12,
Bollywood
I
has.
would laugh at that.
Yeah.
I would laugh. I would watch Dostana and I'd be like, haha, hilarious. Because I had no, I had no way of knowing whether this was true or not.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The only gay person I knew in my life was Karan Johar, and he also wasn't technically out in the open. So we discussed some cases with you from the Indian context just to get you started. The more your eyes are opened and the more you start actually fact checking for yourself, you'll get to know how much of the media and the news that we consume is actually not trustworthy. I'd like to move on to happier things or sadder things. I'm not very sure. In About our reading list, we discussed a musical selection with you, talking John Birch, Paranoid Blues, that spoke a little bit about the state of mind that media that makes people paranoid creates in citizens. What we'd also like to discuss with you is now the last part of the reading list, human resilience. There are two of my favorite books of all time that are included in the list that apparently were also two of the favorite books of all time of my very good friend Chandrika Tomar here. So Chandrika, which I think let's start by talking a bit about the plague, because this for me is not just a literature selection, it's also a current affairs selection in this year's reading list. So you want to walk us through it a little bit, what the book was about for you?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, Albert Camus's The Plague is not yet like well known till even till now. Uh, for instance, I think you're the first person I have met after a long time who's ever read The Plague. I read it back in ninth class, and I had no one to relate it to. So basically, it's about this doctor who okay, so it's if you read through it right now, you'll just realize how scarily similar it is to the times that we're going through right now. It's about a story of a doctor who actually tries to warn people that there is one person here who is severely damaged by the killing of rats by a pandemic that can be created by the death of rats, but nobody pays attention to him on just the fact that it's just one person. Why are you creating all this hassle? And then it goes on to become a widespread pandemic, and then you see how the system, each and every system that should be involved in such a difficult time, collapses one by one. The hospitals run out of space, the government lags behind. There are so many interesting characters that are introduced that you will relate to, because you know people like that around you during these tough times too. I think the most important thing about The Plague is how it not only comments on political and economical failure of the government or the systems around us, but it takes us to those with a metaphorical level as well. Like it introduces us to so many ideas which force you to like introspect that are we, is this enough? Whatever is going through, whatever the system has been followed through so many years, is this enough? It forces you to introspect, because it's written in such a way that you cannot help but think that this is too scarily similar to what we are going through right now, what we have
Yeah,
seen right now.
exactly.
Because we have seen, yeah, we have seen so many reports of how hospitals have run out of beds to attend to patients too. There have been so many reports of how migrant workers, like for instance, very nearby my home in Koshambi, me and my father went on to distribute like a huge bunch of puri and achar and stuff, because the migrant workers were located there to go to Anand Vihar ISPT. Imagine a whole metro station earlier. Koshambi के बाद आनंद विहार आता है, right? Koshambi में Pacific Mall के सामने there was such a huge crowd waiting to go to Anand Vihar ISPT so that they can catch a bus to go back to their homes, because lockdown was just suddenly introduced. There was no like forewarning given so that people could start preparing, or there was no, even if they like introduced it to us just now, there were no conditions where anyone who was not of the rich class could perish. There were no conditions that were taken into consideration as to how other people will be going through such difficulties and such calamities in already a more difficult time like the pandemic. So I think The Plague gives you, is very like prophetic in nature if you think about it. It was relevant even then. It was written in, I believe, 1900s, I believe, and it was relevant then and it's relevant now. I think that's what the most scary, that the world has not changed.
Let's break down for a second how similar it is. And I know you'll appreciate this, Chatika.
Yeah.
Is that in the beginning of the novel, The Plague, it starts by, in the very first few pages, it starts with the guy, Dr. Ryu, who is the protagonist of the book, seeing dead rats. So he saw a dead rat under the stairs of his house. Then he saw a dead rat outside his clinic, and he saw two in a day, and he was kind of surprised how this happened. And right after that, he started noticing more and more dead rats, and he was a little worried about how nobody's talking about it. In fact, there's a very famous scene, Chandrika, right, that you were telling us about, where one of
Yeah.
the janitors is
The
actually in
yeah.
denial. Yeah. कि ऐसा तो कुछ है नहीं. I
Yeah.
can't see the
So
rat.
a janitor is standing. Yeah.
The funny,
There were dead rats all around him, and the janitor is saying there are no dead rats.
the
Yeah.
funny part,
And
how
that theme of like ignorance.
Huh.
मैं बोल रहा था कि
Also,
how
you
it
were
is so
saying something.
related to coronavirus is that with the one of the few cases that happened in the one of the first cases that happened in China, um, a doctor who got to know that there's such a new virus that has come out and it's possible that can spread all over the world. He started talking about it, and the media and the state shut him down and
Yeah.
did not let him speak about it.
So this guy, this doctor, all he did was
Yeah.
he told his community of fellow doctors that a new airborne coronavirus is out, and I'm very very scared about this. Within 2 days of him, 2 or 3 days of him sending this to the doctors, the police showed up at his house and made him sign a letter saying that he'll stop spreading these rumors. 1 week after that, the same doctor died of coronavirus, and this news was not covered. So even in India, coronavirus cases had started coming in January, February. In March, we are filling up Motera Stadium for Donald Trump. So we were also in denial, right?
Yeah.
So like there's a very another theme that I thought was picked up that is very common to us now is that everybody's lives had gone for a toss. They couldn't go out anymore. The bars were empty. The few people that were outside, and the concept of time, like never before have we realized how much time we actually have, especially people living in metros and all. Like when we guys go for a round, the round takes 5 or 6 hours. The commute takes 4 more hours. All
Yeah.
that is gone. Now we are sitting at home. There's no time to be wasted in the commute and all. So all of us are kind of struggling with the fact, how do we use our time, right? The influencers are putting stuff up on social media that I have made somehow 18 pack abs in this lockdown now, and I am eating granola parfait for breakfast, when most of us don't know what either of those things are. But for me, the most important parallel that I could draw to this was, there's this character who's my favorite character in the play, the guy who all he does is he sorts out chane, peas, uh, white peas and black peas into two separate piles. At the beginning of every day, he sits down with a mixture of white and brown peas. Then he separates them into two separate piles all day long. He says that the best and the most saintly way I can spend my time is in doing this. जब sunset हो जाती है, उसका खत्म हो जाता है time का quota, then he takes all the peas and mix them back together again. I may be misremembering some of this, and then the next day he starts again. So the concept of how to spend your time in a pandemic and what you consider useful and productive is another philosophical question that was answered there. So just to wrap up on the plague very quickly, the plague is not set in the Great Black Death of Europe. It's set in a fictional coastal town in Algeria where Albert Camus used to live for a long part of his life. And it parallels what is currently happening to a great degree. We cannot recommend this book highly enough. It was already one of the most important books in English literature in the last century. And also, Albert Camus is a very, very depressing guy, but I think that this is actually one of his funniest books. This novel is actually funny, and if you think about it, is also a story of human resilience, because the lead character, Dr. Ryu, continues to go around and treat people and do his job to the best of his ability. Because although he doesn't think that he's doing something great from a moral or ethical standpoint, he believes that it's just a question of decency, and that's the key word here. Decency, and decency means doing my job, and that is the most decent thing I can do at a time like this. And I think that's the main takeaway for us also right here. It's decency. If you don't like the way your mask hides your face because you have a very beautiful one or something, it's the decent thing to do to wear one, because why would you want to be responsible for the death of someone else or someone aged in your own family and blah blah blah. uh, One final thing that I thought that we could cover in this, although I know that we have already gotten quite a lot, is the ultimate story of human resilience, and a little bit about the diary of a young girl by Anne Frank. Chandrika, you went through it recently. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, the Diary of a Young Girl, how do I explain it? I believe most of us know about it, but I don't think that many of us have actually read the book. When you read the book, you cannot help but imagine that scenario in which Anne Frank lived, and how she beautifully expresses all her hopes and ambitions and dreams and whatnot, and her what if. And what's more astonishing is to see with such hope that she wrote even during that very very difficult time, very very testing time, where she was the one who was actually being targeted because of being born a Jew. She still had hopes, she still had ambitions, and with such emotions she wrote everything in her diary, that when you read through it, and it's what becomes scary is how casual that era began era became for her. Like hiding out and spending time with the family was kind of like her lockdown, which was far away from what happened to her. She was like casually explaining it in her diary ki yaar, today is day 36 of me being locked down with my parents and my brother. And it's so casually explained as to how there were two certain people who were mentioned who used to bring in the grocery items of food, and it's so casually explained by her. It's astonishing as to how used to she became to being targeted or being living in the constant fear, that she surpassed that fear and she just became normal with the situation, which no one should ever become normal with. And I think that's when the gravity of the situation hit her, that when she was taken to the gassing chambers, right? She uh, she obviously she like survived that. She did not go to the gassing chambers. She died of a typhus fever afterwards, but she went to the gassing chambers, and I think that's when it really hit her. Just like the plague, right? As I was saying it, in the plague, the theme of ignorance is explained in such a way that it harms us. But in Anne Frank, the theme of ignorance becomes her not realizing the gravity of the actual situation. It's when she goes, I believe that it's when she goes to the gassing chambers, that's when it hits her that that what's happening is inhumane at all levels possible. And what's more chilling is the last line in her diary is that uh, let the worst happen to me, I don't care, or something like that. I have no hopes anymore. Let the worst come, let's see. And I think that's very very like chilling, because a person who wrote through her entire diary, I think for an entire course of like years, she wrote of hopes and ambitions that she had. She still had hope that this time would pass. She still had ambitions that if this time passes, what all I'll pursue, what all I'll go through. She wanted to pursue, I believe, she wanted to go more into literature, if I'm not wrong. And after all that, she just writes it off in the end, saying that, I have no hopes left, I have no ambitions left, let the worst come. I think that's what was the most scary about Anne Frank. But was not like what's very 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 commendable of Anne Frank is her dream, like her dare to dream. She dared to dream in a time where no one dared to dream at all, where everyone people were giving up, where everywhere people were giving up. She still dared to dream. She still dared to have hopes and ambitions, and I think that's remarkable at all levels.
The concept we want to introduce to you through this is so many cases of people who overcame crazy amounts of hardship to now it's not just getting somewhere. We believe, and what's important to this theme is the actual overcoming aspect of it, whether it's people who suffer from terminal diseases or things like cancer, whether it's people who bounce back from addiction and things like that. The kind of questions we want you to consider is that, are there some common characteristics or traits to people like that? And just read up on as many of these stories as you can, because not only does it help you gain perspective in the world, I also find it incredibly motivational, and it sometimes helps us be a little more grateful for the things that we have going on that are kind of right in our life. So on that note, I guess, guys, I think we can bid adieu to the people right here. So guys, we hope you enjoyed this. Please let us know in the comments. Don't just write that please improve video quality. We will try and work on that slowly, and as the lockdown ends, we'll try and improve that as well. But we hope you enjoyed some of the things that we spoke about. What are the next parts of the reading list you want us to talk about? You can let us know in the comments. We will not be giving gyan on the comments, but we'll be responding to your queries and questions and things like that. Maybe should hear back from a rotating cast of our team every couple of weeks after this episode is aired. Guys, just because Shubhankar hasn't said a word all day, Shubhankar, first of all, can you smile?
Yeah.
Can you just say, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Can you do that?
So, guys, if you really like this video, and I'm sure that all of you did, please like, share, and subscribe for our content.
Snoop Dogg. You know I'm mobbing with the D.R.E.